Gamesters, and this is our first podcast. So, hooray, I guess. So I'm just gonna start off a little bit by describing the podcast. My name is Shamir, and I'm with my buddy
Arjun.
You can say your name.
What's up? Yo, as you can tell, we're really good at this. Psych.
Alright, so we're both from Detroit, as you can probably tell. And, we've been gamers for a long time. So we found ourselves always talking about this shit whenever we were bored. We felt like we had some decent things to say. So we said, why not open up the conversation to the rest of you guys? And at least our hope with this podcast is, I don't know, I've never been super into podcasts. But I like listened to a couple. There was some cool shit to hear here and there, but I felt like when you do like a weekly podcast and you just focus on one thing, sometimes you kind of just run out of shit to talk about. So you find these boring topics and kind of make them into nothing. Like what port is on the back of the new Xbox Series X. So we're hoping that we don't do that for you guys. And kind of segueing off of that, even though our name is Detroit Gamesters, we figured that, most gamers are into shit other than just games. So we're going to be talking about anime, movies, TV shows. We'll probably focus mostly on games, but I feel like whatever media form you're in, you can tell a story, and you kind of can understand games more by comparing them to movies and TV shows and all that other crap. So that's my spiel. Basically on why we wanted to make this podcast.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly chime in. This is Arjun. I kind of agree with the sentiments of my buddy Shamir, and I too have a lot of similar interests in terms of gaming, anime, movies, TV shows. But there's a little dichotomy between us, and I feel like there's something we can tell out there that maybe people might agree or disagree with, and I think it's just fascinating to have these conversations because I find myself listening to a ton of podcasts when I drive to work or go out somewhere, and every once in a while I have these thoughts and I feel like I'm just talking to myself, and I feel like what better way to do this than to get out our thoughts and ideas out onto an online show or a podcast of this form and nature, and to see what other people think, because I feel like we're not alone, and it's just a great way to bring about a casual conversation.
Well, Arjun, you're talking to yourself, huh? And
yeah.
Maybe I should petition you and send you to a psych hospital. Alright, so a little background for me. So I am a psychiatry resident by day. I like to do a lot of screenwriting and creative writing on the side. So I'm going to be kind of looking at things more from like character perspective, plot perspective, that type of stuff. Oh yeah.
And this is Arjun. I'm an engineer by day. And I'm just really fascinated into tech and just what people like to do, a lot of rampant speculation on next generation consoles and how they're going to play out. And so I'm always fascinated by new technology. And being an engineer myself, I have a lot of sympathy for other developers in the gaming industry because I know the crunch that goes into developing a product like a video game. Not necessarily because I make a video game, but because I make a product that's akin to making something like that. So you'll probably hear more on the tech side for me and just some interesting ideas and thoughts about certain stories and narratives.
Alright, so we're kind of just going to jump into things. So the way we want to structure the show, we were going to start off more in the beginning with topics that we just felt like we needed to talk about from the last 2 weeks. And normally we try not to share this with each other so we can kind of surprise the other person, but this time around we kind of cheated because it's the first one. So the first thing I really wanted to talk about was the Bleeding Edge beta. So a little bit of history on myself. I am kind of the Xbox fanboy here. I started off falling in love with Halo on the original Xbox. From there I was pretty steady on the 360, and then after Halo 3 was done and then we moved on to Halo 4, I was like, fuck that. And I kind of jumped ship to PS3. It was my first time really being a PlayStation guy. Really loved the PS3. Loved the PS4 in the beginning. Found myself surprisingly gravitating back to the Xbox. And then ended up getting a Switch 2. So I know, no surprise to anyone, but Xbox has kind of been languishing for a few years. But it was really, really nice playing the Bleeding Edge beta. I didn't have too many expectations going into it. I know Ninja Theory is a pretty awesome team, but I honestly didn't know what to expect when I had first heard about it announced and just seeing gameplay. So yeah, me and my buddy Arjun, we played. What was it, like a couple hours on Sunday?
Yeah, I would say about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, and I have to say when I first started playing it was pretty. I didn't think it was the greatest. I would give it like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I would. The fact that I was a little spoiled. I got to play with you, and I think playing with a friend makes a big difference in a game like this, a competitive hero hack and slash kind of game, because even though they've implemented something like a ping system in this game, I mean, no one really was paying attention to us or trying to do or coordinate anything with us while we were playing. So, I would give it somewhere right down the middle, like a 7.
Yeah, I felt like a lot of the people we're playing with were just completely like retarded. Like,
yeah,
they were just running off and doing their own thing and just being idiots, which kind of does ruin the fun in this game, because if you think you're going to be okay going 1-on-4 or 1-on-2 against people, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you stand no chance.
But what I kind of really liked about this game is, I felt like, what is his name? The guy who's fucking big deal with Death Stranding, Hideo Kojima.
Oh, Hideo Kojima.
Like, he's always talking about making new genres, and we're going to be a fucking postal worker for the day. But I actually felt like Bleeding Edge was more of a new genre than I had expected, because, we've all played, like, Team Fortress or Overwatch, and if you hadn't, you really should. And, yeah, this is kind of like that, because it's like an arena, like a team-based shooter, team-based, like, combat game, but the fact that it's melee really changes everything. Like, you might not think it has that big of an impact, but Ninja Theory really brought what they're best at when it comes to, like, Hellblade. I know Arjun's not a big fan of Hellblade, but I really liked it. And, the combat is kind of slow-paced. You're fucking moving like you're in molasses, and it gets annoying. You'll be chasing people down. They won't fucking slow down. But, the combat is thoughtful, man. Like, you really have to think about what you're doing. You can't just fucking run in and spam shit.
Yeah, I mean, the pedigree that Ninja Theory brings to the table, and if you look at their past history, like with Heavenly Blade, and now you have Hellblade Senua, and then they did the reboot of DMC. It's just clearly the melee combat, the hyper-focused combat is their specialty, and it really shines in this game. But my problem with this game is it's very lacking in terms of the amount of combos and the amount of actual damage you can do to a person, because
it's just one combo.
It's just literally you're literally spamming the X button to do physical attacks.
Like,
and
it would be nice if you could do like Mortal Kombat type shit, like XXY or
right.
like XY or.
And I'll give you an example. I played a ton of Dragon Ball FighterZ, and that game, though it was very simple and basic, you could easily, as a novice fighter, you could easily chain combos with the 3 buttons like X, Y, and B. And it made it so easy for anyone to get into. But with this, you had to manage your special attacks, and they all had cooldowns. So it's like you were constantly looking at the bottom right of your screen for a majority of the time, running around, hoping you wouldn't get hit.
So I don't know how I feel about that. Also, Arjun, I just gotta say, it's Heavenly Sword, not Heavenly Blade.
Oh, my bad. I'm a noob.
I never played it. I have to admit, I never played it. It was too early on in the PlayStation cycle for me.
Noob 101.
Alright. But, alright, like, I guess I kind of agree with you, but I also disagree with you a little bit, because you do really have to, like, plan those out, but I feel like that's a part of the strategy. Like, in a weird way, like, the bullshit of the game is also kind of the strategy of the game. Like, you have to plan when you run away from people, you have to be a little bitch and run away, because you really can take multiple people on. At the same time, if you run in and you try and just spam all your, like, special attacks, I would do that all the time. I would get someone's health off, like, halfway, and then they would kill me, because all I could do was press X, and I wouldn't be able to evade, because you could only evade twice, which is dumb, but whatever. And yeah, I think, so that's kind of what I would say to that, but I do agree with you. They need more combos, dude. Just spamming X takes no skill. I like, why can't we hold X?
Right.
You know, like, why can't you do, like, an XX hold X?
Right.
Or an XXX hold X? You know, like, at least some shit that's different.
Right, or using the directional, the D-pad and in combination with any of the buttons be able
like,
to.
I don't even know what they were using the D-pad for. Like, the fucking ping system is terrible.
Yeah, it is horrible.
The mounting system is whatever. Like, that's okay, but then you're using a D-pad on that, and I don't even know what the down or the left does. I don't think anyone does.
There's no finesse to the combat, which is just kind of unsatisfying, and it's kind of a disappointment.
Dude, but even it's all about the interrelationships between the characters. Like, they're not focusing as much on, like, the one-to-one fights, but, like, because of that, but it really comes down to, like, who you're bringing, like, who's your squad, you know, and, like, who you going up against.
I'll say,
like, yeah, like, you know, like in Dragon Ball, like, fighters, some shit like that. Like, if you get skilled enough with the different combos, you can fuck anyone up.
Right.
But in this, it's all about who's your boy on your side.
Yeah, they really encourage, team play, and I think because, I don't know, when you release a beta of this nature, you're trying to see how much you're stress testing the servers, you're trying to see how many people are gravitating towards a certain character, and you're trying to see, what's unbalanced and what is balanced. I think the problem is they didn't show enough in this beta that justifies pre-ordering this game, and I think this game's perfect for Game Pass.
Even though most people aren't going to pre-order, everyone's going to
exactly. And I think this is going to hurt the sales like tremendously. But
it's only $30,
which is not bad. But I'll tell you this. Apparently, Ninja Theory.
Would you pay $30 for this game?
I would not. This is like a bargain.
Okay, so what would this game need to have in order for you to feel like it's worth $30?
I would say this would need an actual, not a single player, but some sort of either cooperative mode, like maybe like a horde style mode, kind of.
Dude, cooperative would be really good.
Yeah.
Dude, this is totally, like, we've talked about this before, like the Sunset Overdrive, like,
right.
vibes. Like, if you had some sort of, like, horde type ass thing where there's a bunch of people coming and trying to, like, mess you up.
Exactly.
With the different classes, that could be interesting. Because what really is working well here is the synergy between the different groups. Like, between the different people. Like, you were always that snake person, but, like, the snake person works really well against other people when they're with somebody else.
Right.
Like, yeah, you can do a pretty decent job on your own, but you find the right partner and you're going to destroy them.
Exactly, and I think that's where it would have benefited the most. I do say this, like, it's a great way to incentivize gamers and advertise and market Game Pass in general, because at least Microsoft can now say, hey, we're putting Game Pass on sale again for another $1 for an extra month. And by the way, try out Bleeding Edge, a brand new game that you're only going to be able to play here, on Xbox. And hey, if you play it on Game Pass, we'll give you an extra couple mods. And that's the other thing about this game.
I feel like this is so easy to market.
It is.
You could easily make a trailer on this or a couple of cool screenshots.
Yeah, it's a perfect Game Pass game. I'll say this, like,
but like, what does that mean? The perfect Game Pass game. Like, when we say that, is that a problem for Microsoft? Because
really
I feel like we're basically denigrating them to this is a perfect Game Pass game.
But by Game Pass, I mean,
it's like saying, she's good for you. She's good for you. We're proud of you for being able to get that.
It really is. I mean, when I say Game Pass game, I mean it's a great rent game. It's a great, hey, I'll pick it up, maybe rent it for a week and play it for a little bit, but I've never dedicated too much time into it.
So I guess I kind of have to disagree with you on that, because I think it would be a great game to buy if it had more maps and more maps and more game modes for sure, which I can't hate on them right now because I don't know how much of that we'll have when it's actually released. I have my doubts. I don't think there'll be that much. And the reason why I think this game has got me is even after I played this beta, I'm still thinking about it. I remember, I don't play a lot of betas, honestly. And when I do, or I play a demo of a game, I don't really get hooked that much. I think last time, me and you played the Destiny beta. Way long ago. Right. And that was fun. That actually hooked us. I loved the first time I made a fucking bubble. That got me hooked, and it got me thinking about the game, for when it would come out. And I found myself coming home today and wanting to play. And the reason I wanted to play is because I suck at this game. This game is infuriating because all the skills that you learn in other games do not translate into this.
Right. I'll say this, it was very polished and it takes some sort of strategy to actually, like you said, be good at this game. It's just that lack of variety. The fact that there's a low amount of characters, not as many maps to play in the beta.
It's not terrible.
It's not terrible,
I would want more 16, 15.
But see,
especially since some of the people seem a little repetitive.
But here's the problem. The problem is this game is now gearing more towards the games as a service in the sense that it's not that they do this on purpose, because everyone's limited on resources and on development, and there's just a certain amount of time where you have to release a game before, you know, your publisher might get really pissed at you.
So
here's what I'll say is this. They're going to do the route where they're going to add support for this game for a very long time maybe, but they're going to keep releasing maybe seasonal passes that say you have to purchase this.
So that's one thing that really does bother me about Microsoft. All right, I'm going to bring this game up. Killer Instinct.
Oh my god,
Killer
what a horrible
Instinct.
example.
All right, I was looking up, I was scouring the internet for the best games on Xbox, right? And some people actually put Killer Instinct. And when you look at what Killer Instinct is now, you got a lot of characters, you got a lot of maps, you got a lot of game modes. You actually have a pretty polished fighter.
Right.
If it released like that in the first place, you know, in the second or third year of when Microsoft had no fucking exclusives,
right.
people wouldn't have been like, oh, there's nothing to play other than, like, Gears 4. You know, there would actually be something. But when you fucking disperse this shit out, you lose people's attention.
Right.
You kill your hype train, and then people don't care.
And you re-release it like 5
Killer
times.
Instinct, honestly, if it all come together like that in the first place,
it would have been a great package.
Probably easily, people would have loved it. They would have been they would have ranked it at one of their best games, probably like 8.8 or more. Now, I'm not trying to say for all the people who love Killer Instinct that it's not a good game, because we've played it, we've
really
enjoyed it, but we're saying that the way I think it was distributed kind of hampered its
They lost
success.
their fan base, basically.
And I will also go to the next game, which I know you are not a fan of, Arjun, Sea of Thieves.
Oh my god.
When Sea of Thieves first came out, it had nothing.
Yeah.
And after a year, I played it again. It had more content. Still not for me. I played the arena. I thought I would really enjoy that. I couldn't get into it. I was always fucking lost when I tried to play, like, the story. I will say that the adventure mode or whatever they had, I don't think you had a chance to play that.
Never tried that.
That was pretty cool. Why didn't it come out like that a year ago?
Right.
Why didn't they wait a year?
And that's just the main question. I mean...
And I sorry to interrupt, but I get why they did it, because their philosophy was, hey, you know, we want to build with the community, we want to release this, see what the community wants, and tailor to them, have a new type of experience. But in today's day and age, the gaming world loves their hype, they love their expectations, and they love to beat their rival console.
Right. I think like, for example, that game, Sea of Thieves, they had good intentions in the sense that, like you said, they wanted to build the game with the community. They almost basically released the game as an early access game to the point where they're like, we want to get as much feedback as we can from our fans, and we'll try to add in all these changes and updates as we go. But that also does bad for the game, because when the game first released, it had so much negative connotations and so much negative reviews associated with that game, and with any game that does it, that it kills the sales. I mean, people review bomb the hell out of the game. I mean, it gets 100 zeros on Metacritic.
Is Microsoft dumb? You know this is how the gaming world is. Why is this a surprise?
But then again, sometimes they just really don't have a choice. And I'll tell you this, from what I've heard, Bleeding Edge was in development at the same time Ninja Theory was making Hellblade Senua, and this was before they were picked up by Microsoft. And they only had...
So I thought it was just concept art. I thought that they had the idea, they wanted to do it, but they never had the funding, so they couldn't actually expand on it.
Yeah, so basically what it came down to was they had a couple of people, and it was literally a couple of people working on concept, maybe ideas for combat and what the game would really be, whether they wanted it to be fully focused on multiplayer. And the problem was, because they didn't have enough funding, they just fully shifted all the resources to Senua, and then when they got picked up by Microsoft, then they were able to fully realize their dream. But the problem was they went off an idea that wasn't fully fleshed out. So I kind of, it's not like you can blame the team, but they wanted to put this out as fast as they could, and with Microsoft saying this is a perfect Game Pass game.
But like, I think this is a little preemptive, because at least what I felt like I saw from the game, it's polished, man. It's
it
good.
really is.
When we have betas, dude, when we play the Destiny beta,
yeah,
you know,
it was nothing.
How much did we see?
Yeah,
and
it was very
so
minimal.
much more to the game after. I mean, not an insane amount. You know,
yeah,
Destiny
but for the first couple of months,
there was a lot more than what we had seen from the beta. So maybe this too will have more. But if it doesn't, I think that's the one thing that will shoot this game in the foot.
Right.
And I hope I don't see that. And the reason I'm concerned is if this was pushed a couple more months, which would be difficult because of the whole Series X, and they want it before the Series X, and if they could have had more maps, I know this would be a success. But right now, I have to put it in a category of it might not be as successful as I think it should be.
I'll say this too, and just to kind of close on this is, there's a lot of people like us that work and have a career and a family and kids, and people who can't keep up with the meta, basically whenever a developer releases content for a game that needs to be played within the first couple of months. Otherwise, people drop off and then move on to the next expansion. If you can't keep up with the meta, you're not going to have fun. You can't just go back to old content a year later and then expect to be like, well, why isn't anyone playing with me? So I think the problem is if you don't keep up with games like this, games as a service, you're just going to ultimately end up with a low amount of followers and fans, and ultimately it's not going to make the money back. It really isn't. And then will they get a second chance to make a game like this again? I don't know.
But I don't know, man. How much money did Sea of Thieves make? How much money did
I don't know. I really
we don't know. We don't know. And I know Sea of Thieves, I mean, they don't really have microtransactions. Now they kind of have it with Leggo, let's get a parrot and a fucking monkey. Alright, that's cool. Apparently it's making a lot of money, and I think it's cool to have those. But I wouldn't pay for it.
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't pay for it.
I mean, arguably they have a way bigger team than Ninja Theory too, so
that's
you expect
thing
more
I
from
wanted to
them.
talk about. How do you feel about, and this is a little off topic, but how do you feel about these huge studios having pet projects or small projects? Because, man, like, when we look at some of these studios, they have 400, 500 people on a single game.
Right.
And if you can bring out a game like Bleeding Edge with, what, I don't know,
Maybe,
30
yeah,
people?
maybe 20 at the most. Who knows?
I mean, that's impressive.
It really is. I think it's fine for teams like this to explore, and I think it's great for the health of the company in general, because if you don't explore, if you just keep making the same thing over and over again, and for example, like the Coalition, who was a new company introduced to Gears, but then for them to be told that, hey, we're going to scrap our original game they were working on and just to continually make Gears games, it just gets boring after a certain amount of time. It doesn't matter how good the game is. I mean,
We want something new.
we want something new. It's just something refreshing.
So I got a thought. Is the fact that we're seeing these pet projects because of Game Pass?
Yeah.
Just think about it. When you're a big studio like Naughty Dog, you got a name, dude. You when you come out with the big guns, you're coming out with the big guns.
Right.
You got to bring the best of the best, because that's what people expect from you. And in today's age, with how complex these games have gone in, open world, everyone wants that, right? And it's taking 4 or 5 years to develop a game, and it's still held to even higher standards in the last generation. That is causing it to be difficult to release a side project or a good idea, and I think that causes developers to get burnt out when, holy shit, I've been working on Uncharted now for 20 years, well, not 20, 10 years, and
Right.
all we've really done is 2 games.
Yeah.
Right? But now you have Game Pass. Even if Bleeding Edge doesn't work, does that mean Ninja Theory sucks balls? No, because they're gonna make Hellblade,
Right.
and that's their big showstopper, right?
Yeah.
So even if Bleeding Edge doesn't work, it's okay, and we can just release on Game Pass. So I think Game Pass incentivizes creativity.
Yeah, it really does. And I can say this as an engineer. I worked on projects for multiple years, and you're right, you get burned out to the point where there's days where you feel like you hate your job. And for the people that are allowed to work on a side project to then more, express themselves, like a Bleeding Edge kind of game, it's just good for the health of that company. It just comes back to the point where, hey, we were able to exercise our creative fingers and try out something new. And, it's good for those types of companies because, like you said, Game Pass is really giving them the chance to express their creativity.
Yeah, maybe Bleeding Edge, the team will learn something, and now
Yeah.
Hellblade will have a bunch of guns as well.
You never know.
And pop a cap in their asses.
That's like Costa's gun.
Alright, so last thing I'll say on Bleeding Edge before I close out. So I think me and Arjun, we differ a little bit about where we would rate this. First impression, I would have said a 7.
I agree.
Now I'm thinking higher. I think I would put it more like an 8.5, 8.6. I really enjoyed it. I just wanted more content. The main reason I enjoyed it is because it's slow paced, and even if you're good at games, you're going to play this game, you're going to be frustrated as hell for the first 45 minutes, because you're going to be these controls are really shitty, and then you realize even the shittiness in it has purpose, and you just got to learn. And games nowadays don't do that as much, where
Right.
you just suck, and you got to practice and get better, and that's why people love Dark Souls so much.
Yeah, good point.
What would you say you would give this?
Yeah, final thoughts. I'm gonna stick with my 7. If I hadn't played with you, it's not that it's boring. It's just that playing in that competitive space, if you can't communicate with a team, you're not gonna get the most fun out of the game, because the game is meant to be strategic, but to be played by a whole group of 4 people. So I'm still sticking with a 7, and I hope it does good when it launches, and I hope there's more content.
So it's not the new Halo Gears?
No, it could be something better. We know how bad Halo was, Halo 5, so come on.
Okay.
Alright, you want to move to the next topic, I guess?
Alright, you want me to go for my next topic I really want to talk about?
Sure.
Alright, so how many of you guys know what Crossfire is? Honestly.
Wait for the dead silence. Yeah, I didn't think so either. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know, I've just had this like fascination about this. I brought it to Arjun and he was like, what the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, what the hell is Crossfire? Apparently it's like one of the most popular games in the friggin' world, and you will not believe it, this is basically a ripoff of Counter-Strike. Condition Zero, nonetheless. For people who really love this game, not trying to hate, I haven't played it myself, just basing this off of YouTube videos I've seen, but yeah, it just seems like it has distilled what people love about Condition Zero, which I freaking love like hell, and it's made it in a package where it's really, really easy to run on any shitty-ass computer, and it's insanely popular in South Asia.
And not to interrupt you, but really quickly, can you just tell why you're talking about Crossfire?
Yeah.
Bring out that why.
So two things I wanted to talk about. So yeah, this game is huge, right? Like, I think it made like $1.3 billion in revenue, which is like as big as Fortnite in revenue. Actually no, I think it's less than Fortnite. I think Fortnite is more like 2.7 or 3 billion or something like that.
That's pretty
you guys
close.
Can fact check. And the daily user count is mind blowing on this. So guys, when Fortnite was like at its peak popularity, from what I've seen, you might want to double check this, Arjun. They were running about like 8.2 million users concurrently.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, and this game, at least what these people are saying, I don't know if they're falsifying the numbers, but they've been running 8 million every single day. Which is crazy. And everyone knows what Fortnite is. Nobody knows what Crossfire is. But so I'm in psychiatry, right? Like, I would go to kids when I was in child psych. I had nothing to talk about them when they were my patients. But guess what? Everyone played Fortnite, so I could always talk about that. Who could I talk to about Crossfire? Nobody. This game is crazy popular. It makes so much money. And now Microsoft, this is the reason I brought it up, I know I've been blabbing, Microsoft is bringing it onto the Xbox.
And that's why I wanted to talk about it, too, in the sense that this was announced in the 2019 E3 press conference by Microsoft.
What did you think of that trailer when you first saw it?
I honestly didn't know what to think, because it was so fucking confusing when I saw this dumb, I don't know if it was like a CG trailer,
dude,
and it was supposed to mean something, and I literally had no fucking clue
I thought that trailer
what
was
the fuck it was.
Complete ass. Sorry, but I did it.
That's what it was.
Microsoft does this shit where they're like, oh fuck, we have no exclusives. What do? Let's just find every person we can go to and partner up with them so we have something to show, And I thought it was one of those. This is actually kind of, I don't know. Did you know PUBG? Before they was announced, because I knew PUBG. When I heard that it was like coming on the Xbox, I lost my shit. I was like, oh my god, this is freaking crazy. I can't believe this is happening. I talked to people, they're like, what's PUBG?
Right, exactly.
And then it just seemed like that was one of those things where Microsoft is like pulling at straws to try and have something, but they actually have something huge, and I guess this is Crossfire. But,
well, I mean, just kind of looking at it and looking back at what they announced Crossfire X, which I don't know if that's a completely new game or if it's just a remastered version of the old game.
So I looked into it. So Crossfire, this game, it runs on super old assets. And the team is bringing Crossfire into the modern era as Crossfire Remastered, and that's coming out only on the PC. And Crossfire X is their console version.
Okay.
Is that going to come on Sony consoles at some point?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a mix of advertisement. Because when they first announced it, it looked like, oh, this is going to show up on Xbox consoles first, which is always another way of saying it's going to come on Sony eventually, right? But then lately, on the newest trailer that I saw, where it actually showed some gameplay, it said Xbox consoles on, and then when it's like phrasing. I mean, we're literally
it's always.
I hate how in this generation we have to argue this fucking.
Yeah, it's like, what does that really mean? Does it mean only on Xbox
console launch exclusive?
The dumbest taglines that I've ever seen by anyone, but yeah, it's so stupid. Yeah. I think what's more interesting is that Microsoft and this developer is going to be working with Remedy to make a single-player portion for this game, which is very interesting because there's been so many rumors about how Remedy was possibly going to be purchased by Sony, and the fact that Remedy is now going to be making a single-player portion of this game for Xbox only, maybe.
And
Just
why is no one talking about this? Because
right.
So Crossfire is multiplayer only. Remedy is making the single player for this game, and if this game is only coming on Xbox, it's almost like we just got 2 exclusives
right.
for the Xbox. We have a brand new Remedy exclusive on the Xbox.
Right.
What?
Like, why is no
talking about
no
this?
one's talking about
What?
it, man?
That's crazy. Also, what is this game going to look like if Remedy is making it?
Right.
I saw the trailer. I had no idea what the game was going to be about. It just looked like some random, like,
Looked
CIA,
like hot garbage.
Army, whatever. I mean, I don't know how I'd say hot garbage, but...
I would say hot garbage based
it
on
had
that trailer.
no substance.
Yeah, there was no substance. There was nothing that made me particularly excited about this game.
And what is what is Remedy gonna do? Because like Remedy does stuff like Max Payne, you know, they
right.
do shooters with a twist, or like Control, right? Like
right.
they're not gonna just want to have people run in and shoot everyone down.
Right.
They're gonna have like some sort of superpowers, basically.
Yeah, it's got to be unique.
And how are you gonna do that in basically Counter-Strike?
Right. It does.
What,
it doesn't fit their MO. It
why
really
did you
doesn't.
pick Remedy to do this?
Yeah, it doesn't fit their MO, and I don't know if.
Why'd you pick 343 Industries?
Well, was it really them, or was it... who knows how this project kind of came to be quite honest. I don't know if Remedy's grasping at straws because they're trying to work with, trying to get as much work as they can.
Do you think they got hit really big after Quantum Break? And because of that, like, they kind of thought Control would be successful, but they were like, man, we got to branch out.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Control never hit the top 10 in terms of sales on the NPD all of last year, which is really bad. Which tells you it basically didn't sell, and that game probably had a budget of maybe $20 to $30 million, and you have a studio of maybe 100+ people, and if that game didn't sell well, I mean, that doesn't speak well for Remedy. Unless they get acquired by Microsoft or Sony, I think this is why they're picking up a project like this.
So, I'm kind of conflicted on that, because I feel like Remedy, yeah, they didn't sell that well, but they were such a critical success that, like, people are just gaslighting them. People just love them right now. And, like, their name is on everyone's, like, lips, you know? And I think that advertisement, like, bonus will go a long way. But, yeah, in terms of their finances, I don't know how great they're doing. And they're really hustling right now. They got, they got this thing. Apparently they have a third game that they were announcing to...
unannounced.
Their quarterly report. We have no idea what the heck that's about.
Got an expansion coming out for
Control.
Control.
I think they're actually going to do 2.
Yep, 2 now. So, I mean, they're supporting their game.
Did you play Control?
I still haven't, and that's a game I'm probably going to pick up on the next-gen consoles, just because of all the stuff I've heard of how it doesn't run great on the PS4 Pro.
Even on Xbox One X, it honestly did not run the greatest. Like, it was good, but, yeah. And I think you would want to play that with some ray tracing.
Yeah, the fact that they did support ray tracing and the next gen consoles will support that at a hardware level, I'm just gonna wait. And the fact that there'll probably be a Game of the Year edition at yeah. Well, again, we know the whole debacle. We know the whole debacle. And if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, basically Phil Spencer tweeted a couple months ago that he was excited for Control to come to Game Pass, and then Remedy clarifying saying that they had nothing to announce at the time. And then there's been all these...
How mad was this fucking guy?
I mean...
He probably broke his laptop. Like,
oh, yeah. Because it ruins your sales of your game when you're trying to release additional support and content. And the fact that if Sony's really trying to purchase them, it's just not the greatest time to say that. Because...
And, I feel like now we've kind of started to learn, and there's a bit of a fun to this, what game is coming out on Game Pass next.
Right.
And when Control was coming out, I was like, this
and that looked like a Game Pass game.
Because it's the games that are AAA exclusives that are from studios that aren't super wealthy, that aren't necessarily going to make insane amounts of money that Microsoft is preying on. Right? Like Rage 2, right? Like, I don't know if that's AAA, but still, like, big name game, right?
Big name game, yeah.
But, like, how much money was that actually going to make?
Right.
Devil May Cry 5. Huge game.
Right.
It probably made a good amount of money, but, like, I was surprised that came on Game Pass, but still, those are the things that they're going for. Control kind of fits the bill.
Yeah, it does, and I'll say this. Capcom recently released some earnings on their quarterly call, and basically saying Devil May Cry was their best-selling Devil May Cry game, but it only sold like 3 million copies within a year. So when you look at that, that is a commercial success, but it's not up to the numbers that they're really expecting. So that is, in terms, a good Game Pass game. They're trying to trying to get the most out of the life of the game in terms of financially.
You know, I feel like we're just talking about Game Pass so much, but honestly, it's one of the revolutionary things that are happening right now, and there's just so much to talk about when it comes to Game Pass. And, like, now we're starting to see games leaving Game Pass. So, Rise of the Tomb Raider is leaving Game Pass. I think Just Cause 4 is leaving Game Pass, right? And I think Microsoft flooded the gates with as many games as they could.
Right.
And now I'm wondering how many of those games, those really big games that were just sitting there, we were all too lazy to play,
right.
now they're going to start pulling them back. And they'll probably ramp them back up when the Series X comes out.
Yeah, now you got me worried there because I thought this was such a great service, and it still is. It's just that I've put so many games on my play later playlist now, and that I haven't touched, like Monster Hunter and GTA 5 and all these games.
Don't count on Monster Hunter being there forever. I can see that would leave. GTA 5 will stay.
And that's why now, this is what kind of has me at gripes, is because Sony has now started offering a little better catalog of games on PS Now, and this is what they're doing. They're getting a lot of their first-party games like God of War, and I'm not saying the service is great because I think Microsoft just has a better overall platform for this, and their games tend to stay longer. The problem is now you're starting to see that all game, like not all, but some games are leaving, and that just has me more worried than anything.
But I mean, they brought some heavy hitters.
They really did.
Grand Theft Auto 5.
GTA 5 was crazy. Witcher was just another
Final
phenomenal.
Fantasy 15 Royal Edition, dude. These are heavy hitting games.
Yeah.
And these are games. I don't know how well the other two are doing, but Grand Theft Auto 5, they're games that are still being sold to this day.
Yeah, I mean, Grand Theft Auto 5 has sold, I think, arguably over 100 million copies.
And you know what?
So.
I would not be surprised if Kingdom Hearts 3 came out on Game Pass.
That would be nice.
Not now, but in a year.
I could see it.
I could totally see it on the Series X. I don't know if they do some remastered shit or whatever.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or whatever. But and then like if they had the entire
collection.
Isn't the collection 1 and 2 coming out on?
The collection, I think, was literally just released the other day on Xbox.
You know Microsoft wants Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
You know
and the fact that Phil's always been adamant and outspoken about partnering with Japanese developers because they just don't have any market share in Japan right now.
They don't.
And if they can get those JRPGs like that they kind of used to do back in the OG Xbox, I mean, that can flip a bit for their fans and audience.
And you know, I was just listening to a podcast this morning from Xbox On. I think that's what it was, and they were talking about that. Microsoft's hold in the Japanese market.
Right.
And
makes a big difference.
Yeah, I kind of want to agree with his point. He was saying that in Japan, like, Microsoft should kind of just give up because what are they doing? Like, Japanese gamers are not going to go for Microsoft. They love their Nintendo Switch. They love their mobile gaming. They love Sony. And, like, yeah, Microsoft released Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon like a million years ago, which were great.
Right.
And, like, even if they have some great Japanese RPG games come out, how much are people going to, like, segue over to Microsoft?
Yeah, and then that's where it comes down to. Is like, I think you're right. I think it's not that they have to pull out the Japanese market. I just think it's a lost cause. But I think if they acquire a Japanese developer, someone like, let's say, From Software, I think that would do great leaps and bounds for them in the European.
They could afford From Software.
They could. They can afford anyone, but I think it would do great leaps and bounds for them in the European and the U.S. market.
The greatest thing is if they bought Platinum Games.
Platinum Games would be another great. If they did, though, they would have to put out Scalebound. They just would have to do it.
Yeah, they would. But
just to make up to fans for all the shit and
if
fuckery.
They did, that'd be so troll. Can you imagine if they bought
So imagine this.
Imagine this studio and we got Bayonetta 1 and 2 remastered.
I know. Well, you know what's funny is Bayonetta 1 remastered and Vanquish remastered in 4K 60 FPS is coming out this month on Xbox only. Isn't that crazy? I mean,
seeing the signs.
I mean, it says something. Well, that and then Platinum is like trying to get into bed with Tencent and get their own money to self-publish their own games.
Tencent scares me, man. Tencent,
that Chinese money.
They are taking over gaming so hard.
Mao money, Mao problems.
But I gotta say, I don't know. Do I like Tencent more than I like EA? I think I do like Tencent more than I like EA.
I don't know. I would always be wary of foreign money, where it's coming from and what they're trying to do. EA just has a bad reputation because the last decade they pulled a lot of shitty moves on fans by giving out online passes for games in the PS3 360 era to play for used games. It's like, no, fuck that. Let me play my used games online whenever I want. I don't want to pay an extra additional fee. Like, fuck that shit, you know?
Man. So,
or microtransactions.
So I gotta say, we got a little off topic, but going back to the main thing I wanted to talk about was Crossfire. I forgot to mention the craziest thing about this whole story.
Which is?
Sony is releasing a movie of Crossfire. Alright?
What?
So Sony was like, oh shit, these people, they got the exclusive rights for the video game. How do we fire back? Let's make a movie. What
a
are
great
you
way.
trying to accomplish?
So, Sony always tries to one-up their competition, and this was not the way to do it.
I know, Sony, you're trying to make video games into movies, you know, with God of War and Uncharted and all that, but why Crossfire?
Yeah,
okay, are you just hoping that the Chinese market just goes crazy and picks this up? You know, because you don't have the name recognition when it comes to Crossfire. What is your single player story going to be? By using Crossfire, you can literally make like any military shooter you want, right? And then it's like,
it's not even that. Their movie division, which they've just spun off in the PlayStation brand, doesn't have any recognizable movies they've made either. They might have made, I think, a Ratchet.
Crossfire's gonna be the first.
Well, I think they might have made that Ratchet and Clank animated film, but that lost a ton of money. It didn't even make back the money that they used to budget and market.
I actually didn't watch that movie. I should have watched it. I really wanted to see it. I don't know why I didn't.
But getting back to the main point, I think this was just a dumb move by Sony. I think it was just another one of those things where they want to have a piece of the pie. You know, they want to get their cut, and they want to try to one-up Microsoft as usual.
Do you think Crossfire is going to take off on the Xbox?
I think it'll do just as good as how PUBG did, which is they'll have an audience.
Dude.
I think they'll have an audience, and I think maybe the single-player portion might actually end up being worth playing. It might be, maybe if it's like a 6 or 7 hour campaign, it might be worth buying, even if it's a separate download, like a $20 to $30 purchase. You know, there's something.
I mean, if it's good, like, I'm all for Counter-Strike basically on the Xbox. Like, that could be a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of fun.
But man, when PUBG came out on the Xbox, with how broken that game was when it came out, and the amount of people that still played that game, that's a testament to how much we loved Battle Royale in the beginning. At least for us. I mean, we're not big Fortnite people at all.
Right.
But yeah, we really liked PUBG in the beginning, and it was the most broken thing ever.
Yeah, it was really broken.
I don't
and somehow
know
addicting.
if this game is gonna be able to like spark that fire as much as like, oh my god, finding a Battle Royale on the consoles. But a good Counter-Strike always goes a long way.
It really does.
Counter-Strike is still crazy popular.
Yeah, I have nothing more to say about that other than I'm just in a wait-and-see approach, and I'll give the game a shot when it comes out.
Yeah, I'll try it out, but I'm not expecting much.
Yep, same here, low expectations. So.
But I have to say, it's very, very surprising.
It really is.
That's all the things that I really wanted to bring up and talk about. So, I'll move it over to Arjun.
Yeah, there's something that I really want to talk about, and it's pretty rampant right now. If any of you guys pay attention to any of these forums online, like NeoGAF and Reset Era, or just watch videos on YouTube in general, or pay attention to media outlets like IGN and GameSpot, you know that, you know, we're in the middle of February, and we still barely have any news about the PS5 in terms of about when it's going to be revealed. And a lot of people expected like an event this month to kind of follow up what they did with the PS4 back in 2013, but they literally put out a website saying we're just not ready to talk about it yet. And it's so rampant right now that Bloomberg...
We saw the logo.
The logo was just ridiculous. I mean, what did people expect? Okay, I mean...
I didn't think it was going to be PS... Ooh.
I mean...
Maybe they were going to go with a V. How do you know?
Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean, how do we know? And the fact that they show that off at CES was just so stupid because...
Such a waste of space.
Yeah, waste of time because... They told people to pay attention to their conference, and that was a great way to get people to tune in and watch their stuff. But, you know, ever since they changed the Spider-Man PlayStation 3 font to the normal PS3 and then went to PS4, I mean, this was just obvious. You know, this is just the next step. But I kind of want to cite a Bloomberg article basically about the PS5's bill of materials have been pushed to $450 due to scarce NAND and DRAM components. And basically, Bloomberg is saying that they have sources. They're saying that the coronavirus outbreak is not really going to impact the production of the PS5, but people within the PlayStation business unit are saying that the retail price will vary depending on what Microsoft sets its price to, and basically they're not sure whether they want to take a loss on this console. I think a lot of people were speculating that this console was already going to be $500 just based on the jump in hardware, in terms of software, in terms of technology, and I'm fine with that price point. But here are a couple more points that Bloomberg reported on. Basically, saying that a lot of the launch PS5 games are also going to be on PS4. They're obviously in a wait-and-see approach to see what the Series X price is going to be, because that's going to factor into what they want to do, because that will affect the amount of people that end up buying their console within the first couple of years. And then that a new PSVR will launch after the PS5 launch. So I just kind of wanted to talk about a couple of these things, and I find it really interesting.
That's a lot of stuff to kind of break down. So
yeah, it is.
So I guess I'll kind of just start with price point. So I had heard, I just read recently that, all right, how much do you think it costs for the PS4 to be made when it first came out?
I think when it first came out, it was like around $380.
Yeah. So how much did you think? Because I looked it up. It was $388, I believe. How much did you think it actually cost them? Because I thought it was less money. I thought it was more like $350. I thought Sony was actually making a good profit off of this.
Well,
which means I didn't expect them to cut it so close. That
right.
was a ballsy move on Sony's part.
It really
was. Like, when it first happened, it made all the sense in the world. $100 less than our competitor, right? And screw Kinect, screw the PlayStation, Eye or whatever we had. And yeah, this is gonna be great.
And no DRM.
No DRM. Yeah. Why did I say it in the first place?
Yeah.
But when you think about it, to cut that close at 388 with how bad Sony was doing as a company on the whole, with the TV market not doing the greatest, with their phone, who buys Xperia phones
and their
nowadays,
laptops.
Their laptops, Vio is not even a thing. To be so daring to cut that close of a profit margin, and when you factor in the cost of marketing, you're easily $450, $500 per console. Taking that loss, being so confident, they really were betting that Microsoft fucked it up on DRM.
So bad.
They were betting so hard that they fucked it up on DRM. And whoever first thought of that idea, he should have became a president of Sony.
Yeah,
he saved that company.
Or at least deserved a promotion or a raise, because you're right. I mean, within the first couple of years, most of the times these manufacturers take a loss on hardware and they make it up on the back end with software. It's just inevitable. And as years go on and the prices of these components get cheaper, they'll end up releasing, more iterative, slim versions, and they end up making a little more money on it. But it's just the software that makes it up mostly for them. So.
And you can see someone like Microsoft do it because they have big pockets. They don't give a shit.
Right, they really don't.
Looking back now, something that I thought was the most obvious business strategy was very surprising and worked perfectly fine.
It really
did. PlayStation 4. So now let's talk about PlayStation 5, right? Like you had brought up.
Yeah, I think
$450.
$450
that
is crazy.
Is an awkward price to be at.
It really
That
is.
is the most awkward price to be at.
That was probably going to be the most awkward price to come out of, because it's not only that it's so awkward, but it's just damning. Because now that it cat's out the bag, Microsoft knows now.
Yeah.
They can.
I didn't even think about that. They don't.
And the fact that they've said they're already going to be at E3, they can just hold off on revealing their console until June.
Microsoft wrote off like $1 billion or something.
Right.
Or maybe more. I don't even know how much on their failed phone business. You think
right.
they care how
they
much
don't
money
give a
they lose
flying
on
fuck.
Xbox? And $450 is such an awkward number because how much more do you want of profit margin for your console? At least $100, right? For marketing or whatnot. You don't want to be that close.
Right.
So we're going to be at $550. No
right.
one's going to buy that.
No one's going to buy it.
You want either $499, $399. The 99s make sense.
Right.
And what are you going to do? You're not going to sell for $60 less. You're not going to sell for $400. You're not going to sell for $449. That's awkward. So you have to go for $499.
Yeah, you have to.
People hate the $500 number on a new console.
Look, I think if they go $499, I think they're going to be making a mistake now, because you might be making up some of that money, but the fact that your competitor already knows now is they can lowball you, and like you said, they can take that loss. Microsoft can easily eat it for a couple of years because they have such great services on their console. And a lot of their games are going to be cross-generational for the first 2 years. A lot of people are still going to be buying most of their games for probably the Xbox One. So, if anything, if they do it wrong, Microsoft might end up winning the first couple of years. And by winning, I mean they might end up selling more hardware.
People really don't like Microsoft right now.
They don't, but they have a chance to redeem themselves. Ever since Phil Spencer took over, they've been doing everything for the gamer. They've been making better decisions about it.
But there's the people who really pay attention to what's happening in the gaming world, and there's the people who just kind of hop on what's the most popular gaming system right now. And Sony has that in spades. That's going to be hard to overcome. But I agree with you. and I'll get to that in a little bit. But what I want to ask you first, what price point would you pick? If someone told you now $450 is how much it's going to cost for this console, what price point do you pick?
Okay, the assumption I'll go on is that the coronavirus really won't have an impact on prices, which ultimately...
How are you even going to predict that? Like, I don't know how that guy predicted that.
It's here, yeah. You can't just say stuff like that because if the console's still not being manufactured yet, which normally it ends up being the summer before the consoles are released, I still actually think that will impact it in some form or fashion. I just think
at this point, can you definitively say that coronavirus isn't going to become an epidemic across the whole world?
Exactly.
Right.
We
don't
know.
even know. We don't even know what's truly happening in China. How many people are infected? Right.
And the Chinese government is hiding the amount of people that have been infected and have died. So.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna suddenly say, oh, we devised a new way of judging who has coronavirus, and oh my God, 1,000 more people have it out of nowhere.
Right, exactly.
What?
It makes no sense.
You don't know this from the beginning.
Exactly, and if you have less people helping to manufacture these parts and putting these consoles together, the prices of this is just going to go up because they have to make an artificial shortage. They just have to because they won't be able to put out enough for demand.
Can you imagine if the Trump tariff was in effect as well?
Oh my God, this would be horrible.
Can you imagine how expensive these consoles would have been?
It would be an extra $100 on top of that, so it'd probably be close to. It'd be $600, no doubt.
$600, that would have, it would have been dead on arrival.
Yeah, dead on arrival. But I would say they have to go $499, and not just because I feel sorry for them. It's because they're already going to take a loss. I think even at $499, like you said, the marketing. All these external factors.
Crazy thought. This would never happen. Crazy thought. What if they just cut out the PS4? PS4 Pro is now the entry level PS5. PS5 is the PS4 Pro.
But the problem is
justify the $600 console.
Yeah, and get 2 jobs while you're at it, right?
No,
yeah, good old Sony.
That would never happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. If I had to pick a price and it's $450, yeah, I know what you're saying about the coronavirus. I'm going $479.
That's such an odd price.
It's an odd number, but it's the better evil because psychology, man. You see the $499, you're rounding up to $500 off the bat. You see $479, you think you got a deal. You save $20.
You're right. You're right. You're so right. I would be like, I am saving $20. That $20 I can put into PlayStation Plus.
If PS5 is $20 cheaper, this is probably the shit they're gonna do. It's $20 cheaper than Microsoft.
They probably will.
Because of psychology.
And they'll probably throw in a free game too, Knack 3.
Oh my gosh.
I could easily see that. Okay.
Well, what price are you gonna say?
No, I think $499 is ultimately what it's gonna come down to.
Yeah. Do you think people will buy that?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of people have been expecting that price just because they used the era of PS4 to first come up with an architecture that was more reliable for game development. And so that was their first attempt at going at this x86 architecture, a more PC-like platform. But now that they know what they're doing and they came out with the PS4 Pro, they can make this so much better. But at the end of the day, that means they're going to have to spend more money on more lavish parts. So I think $499 just makes too much sense, and ultimately it was an obvious. I think I can't say for certain that's going to be $499, but I think that's what's
What are they waiting on Microsoft for? Because Microsoft can do whatever they want with price. Microsoft can go to $400 if they want. They're not going to. They can do $500.
Like you said, psychology. It's all about perception, right? When you have a lower price point, offer more exclusive games, and potentially better services overall,
but
you're telling your fans and your audience that we're making this for you when really that's not the case.
I kind of have to say, and this is one of the most interesting things that I heard in the last couple of days, that Microsoft does not even see Sony as competition.
You're right.
Their competition is Amazon and Google. But rewind to about 2 years ago when Microsoft was getting killed on exclusives. They still aren't doing the best, but they were really getting killed. And, their strategy actually was way more forward-thinking than I thought. With this new, it hasn't been announced officially, but we all know it's true. The 2 different Xboxes that are going to be released, lower tier and the higher tier. By realizing that now to give gamers the graphical fidelity that they want, the price is going to be what the gamer does not want to pay, it creates a conundrum.
It really does.
And gamers want a product that's going to be $600, $700. That's the performance that they crave, that they want. Look at how crazy TVs are getting. 8K TVs.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
That's
Everyone's going to want 120 frames per second 8K. That's going to be the new buzzword that people are going to go crazy for in 4 years.
Exactly.
How insanely hard is it to pull that off? That's insane.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
insane. To even have content to live up to
That's
that
impossible.
fidelity is just ridiculous.
Impossible, but that's what people want, right?
I agree.
And Microsoft realizes that, we'll release that product, we'll advertise that product, we can say we have the best console in the world with the product that you can't afford, but you want. Maybe you'll get it on sale and be super happy. Price it at whatever, 500, 600, whatever. I don't know if they'll go that high, but that's the model. And then have a cheap one. And the only way you can make that work is streaming. And that's the one thing Sony cannot do unless they partner with you.
Right, exactly.
That's so smart.
It is smart. It's a great business strategy.
And I thought it was the dumbest move 2 years ago.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out maybe in the next couple of years whether it truly pays off for Microsoft or not.
It's an interesting gamble.
It is. And that kind of leads me to my next point is a lot of people have also been complaining recently from the statement that I think it was Matt Booty had made in an interview or a podcast, basically stating that the next 12 to 24 months of the launch of Series X, there won't be any exclusive games per se, but more cross-generational that will be able to be played on all families of Xbox One, or Xbox for that matter. But this report by Bloomberg is really interesting because they're also claiming that many of the PS5 launch games will also be on PS4. And it got me thinking more and more. And in a release year where you're having two of probably really fantastic or great games coming out, one of them which might be Game of the Year, Last of Us 2, and then you have Ghost of Tsushima.
I don't know. This year is stacked with video games.
This is stacked. But to think that those games would not be their day and date on the PS5 launch, and I started thinking about it more and more again.
Especially Ghost of Tsushima.
Especially Ghost of Tsushima, because it's so close, summer release. I actually do think that those games will actually be there on the launch of PS5, and I think most of their other games that they've been touting, like this quote-unquote Blue Point remaster of maybe Demon's Souls or whatever it ends up being, I think it's all going to be on the PS4 because it doesn't make sense to leave your fan base, even though the reason to come to a new console is to have that one exclusive game that you just can't play anywhere else. You just have too many people on that previous generation, and you might not be ready because for a game that might have been developed for 2 to 3 years, you're not going to make up sales for it for releasing it on one console that has barely any audience. I mean, within the first couple of months, you'll only have maybe 1 million people buying the hardware. So I think what's going to be funny and ironic is that Sony ends up doing the same thing Microsoft does in terms of releasing their games, and everyone will only give shit to Microsoft. I just find it hilarious.
Yeah. Sony would find a way of making themselves not the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
They would find a way.
They always do.
And, I guess I just talk about Xbox all the time, but I promise I'll talk about Sony too. I was playing Xbox, I was playing Modern Warfare with a buddy of mine, and he has the base Xbox, the old one. And, for us, we've debated what is the point of getting the Series X, because we have an Xbox One X each, and I'm very happy with the performance I'm getting for the Xbox One X. Yeah, load times could be better, but graphically wise, I got an OLED TV, it looks great. But my buddy, who has the Xbox One, his load times are terrible. He can't even play Outer Worlds. He says it's terrible. He doesn't want to play because it's so long. And yeah, let's say Halo Infinite and all these games come out, you can play them. You want to wait a minute, like every 10 minutes to play the game, right? There is an incentive to upgrade, and you feel like Microsoft is a good guy because they're still supporting your old console. There is more of an incentive there.
Yeah, there is more of an incentive.
And I get that. Sony, I'm happy with my PS4.
Right, I am too.
Look
how well God of War ran on base PS4.
Yeah, I'm so happy, and it's because of the type of game that Sony releases. Even if you have a God of War in 1080p, 30 frames per second, I don't know what the actual numbers are on what it came out for the base PS4, but the 3D cinematic, point of view, that's fine. People like that, and the PS4 base is better in just the right amount than the Xbox. Because when you're running games at 1080p, 30 frames per second, people are happy with that right now.
Right.
When you're running games at 900p, 30 frames per second, people are like, 900p, oh my god, this is the worst thing of all time. And I guess because of that, like, the jump between people who have PS4s and people who want to get the PS5 isn't going to be as substantial. You know, like
yeah, it really isn't.
in that sense.
In that
Not
sense.
because the PS5 is not amazing. It's because the PS4 to begin with was actually pretty darn good.
Yeah,
and
it
the
was.
games were running pretty damn well on it.
And if you remember, when the base PS4 released and the base Xbox released, the PS4 was more powerful.
Yeah.
It wasn't until they made the Xbox One S that ended up kind of bridging that gap.
And not a lot of people bought PS4 Pros, right?
Yeah, not
Most
a lot.
people
They haven't
kept
sold
their
that many.
PS4s.
Exactly. More people have probably bought the Xbox One X.
Yeah, I mean,
quite honest.
I think like hard numbers, I don't know.
It's hard
PS4
to say.
is selling amazing,
Right.
but percentage-wise, I'm sure a lot of people buy the Xbox One X compared to PS4 Pro within their respective, communities.
Right. And not to go off on a tangent, but whoever your buddy is, I think he's a complete loser for playing on the base Xbox
Bro,
One.
he's playing on like a 32-inch 720p.
What the? Does he live under a rock? Is his name Patrick?
I don't know.
Jesus.
Man. And he was like telling me, yeah, man, I'm thinking about upgrading and buying a new TV. I'm like, go get an OLED. Please, go get an OLED.
Upgrades to the plasma TV? Oh. Well, how amazing. Yeah, so I just find it ironic that if this report really is true, is that almost every PS5 launch game is probably going to be on the PS4.
I mean, they're not having
or exclusive.
I mean, I'm sure our audience can tell too, I'm the Xbox guy. I really am. I wanted to get a PS5. I honestly felt more incentive to get a PS5 or a Series X because I'm looking forward to Infinite. I'm sure it'll look good on my One X. Not amazing, but good, But I thought if I want to play Godfall, I do want to try that out. I gotta get it on PS5, right?
Right.
If I think Godfall might still be PS5 only, I don't know.
PS5
but if that's coming out on
and
PS4,
PC.
Okay. I mean, if that's the case, I have a lot less incentive. I can actually just kind of stick with my PS4 for a while.
Right. For someone of myself, my stature, and the fact that I have some disposable income, I was in the maybe minority in the sense that I was probably first going to buy a PS5 and Series X both on launch. But the fact
you buy
that
everything.
Yeah,
Always.
because I play everything all the time. But
you buy everything even though you don't play everything.
But the problem is, I have a conundrum myself. I have an Xbox One X, but I only have the base PS4. So I have more of an incentive to update my base PS4 to the next console in Sony's lineage.
Same as me.
But I feel like the One X will probably be good enough to play Halo Infinite at a very high resolution fidelity. So I don't know. I don't know really what to do anymore. And until they reveal more about these consoles, it's just these rampant speculations that I'm seeing online is just tearing me apart. Okay, that's all I'll say.
Do you feel like Sony? What was the bare minimum that Sony should have announced by now?
They
at
should
least
have
the box. Should we have at least seen the
no,
box?
not the box, but they should have at least announced. I wouldn't say launch games, but maybe demoed off a few games like they did with the PS4 showing off Killzone, Knack in February, at least giving us a hint of what the next generation was going to look like. If I had an idea of what was coming out,
I remember. I don't know if you guys remember.
I'd feel a lot better. But
did you watch the PlayStation whatever announcement it was in February before PS4 came out? I was in a library, and I remember I watched it, and I was floored. I was like, Guy, this is amazing, streaming! Oh, I can't believe! And then there was, do you remember that game we were promised from Capcom?
Oh yeah, what was
that
it?
looks
Deep down, dark below, some bullshit.
Oh my god!
That looked amazing.
I'm still waiting for this game.
That game looks so amazing.
I'm still waiting.
Right,
For it.
that was like. But again, that's what I would want from a reveal right now.
That gave me hype.
Right, I wouldn't want pricing. I don't give a shit how the console looks like. I know Microsoft already revealed the Series X, but that's not what I care about. I just want to know what we can expect from the next console. And the console could look like a fucking cube for all I care. It can look like a rotund, rotisserie piece of shit chicken. I don't care, but
in a weird way, like we don't know what the point of the PS5 is. It sounds like a dumb thing to say.
It's true.
It's basically just follow up to the PS4. It's gonna do the same thing you did.
Right.
But most of the time, by now, you get what's the purpose of it.
Right.
By now, before the PS3 was coming out, we knew that the PS3 is this futuristic thing with these boomerang controllers, and we're gonna really like blow your head away. And it's $599. Super expensive. We have 6 axes. We knew that, right? With the Xbox Series X, we also know what to expect. We're going streaming. We're going Game Pass. We're going to have a really expensive and awesome console, right? But PS5, like, what is the soul of it? What is the point of it? At least with PS4, we knew it was going to be Gaikai. We knew we were going to have some interesting new type games like Deep Down, not just a follow-up to all the old games we've had, which is true of what PS4 kind of ended up being like. because for a long time we just got new IPs.
Right.
But
and,
what's PS5 going to be about?
Right, and if the rumors are really true, and if they're really going to tout that in their marketing material that, hey, barely any load times, or play immediately, or play here, play fast, play first, if that's what they're going to do, tell us now at least. Don't keep us in the dark.
Tell us how that makes our game experience different.
Exactly.
We understand that 40 seconds to a 2-second wait is amazing. We want that.
Right. But tell me how this is going to change the experience.
Yeah, then what's the point?
Exactly.
And we were able to see that in the older generations from Sony. We need to see that.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I think why I'm so disappointed right now. Just because the fact that they did a lot of drops last year with articles with Wired, to tell us about maybe some of the more not so features that people would be excited about.
What is this backward scheduling? Where Sony announced so early that they're gonna do I don't know if they said solid state for sure,
SSD,
but upgraded. They said upgraded
adaptive triggers, haptic feedback.
That's so early.
Right, and
so early.
It was really weird because you could have left that all for their first reveal of the PS5, but maybe they thought that stuff really wasn't going to be that exciting when they first revealed it, so they wanted to just get ahead of the game. So if you think about it, it really wasn't Microsoft to be the first ones to do it. It really was Sony, but now that there's been such a big gap between the last set of information they gave us, is just really disappointing.
And, this kind of comes from creative writing background. Show don't tell, right? The most powerful thing I think that Sony said about the PS5 was show us Spider-Man and show us the difference in load times.
Right.
That was shocking.
That was really shocking.
That's showing, not telling. We need a second one.
Yep.
We need to know how is the game world going to be different with the PS5, because it seems like that's the main thing the PS5 is going to do. I don't see how else it's going to be different than the PS4. It's just, how is this new processing power going to make new game worlds? And the reason why that's unique to PlayStation versus Xbox, because Xbox can have a lot of the same statistics, is because Sony is basically the Hollywood of the gaming world, right? It's basically making these blockbuster games and telling these amazing stories. And now, Sony's sell to you is going to be how this new processing power is going to expand our way of delivering narratives and experiences to you. And I want to see it. That's what's going to sell people on the PS5.
I mean, and not to go off on a tangent on this either, but you're right in the sense that when was the last time Microsoft even ever had a game that was nominated for Game of the Year?
Let's not go there.
I don't mean to bring it up.
Heart. Step through the heart.
I don't mean to bring it up, but you're right. It's the fact that the main difference is that Sony is really the Hollywood, of gaming industry, and it's pumping out AAA games that with great narratives, great stories,
great experiences.
Like God of War, Horizon, etc.
Revolutionary new experience.
Right,
Sometimes
but so polished.
But it's an experience that will last with you, a story that will last with you, characters you will remember. It's like watching a movie. That's amazing.
And because they have that just step up on their competitor, it's just and it makes more sense that I would want to see the new leap in technology on Sony's platform first before I want to see it on Series X, because right now I have nothing to care about for Xbox other than maybe a new Halo game that might or might not bring back the series, like you said. So.
I have a lot of feelings about Halo Infinite, but I don't know. Game-wise, I'm a lot more interested in what Xbox has to offer for the next generation than Sony. But
we'll see.
At the same time, what have we seen from Sony in terms of the next generation?
Right,
so how much can I actually comment and hate?
So that's kind of really what I want to talk about in PS5. I know it's been pretty fervor online, and everyone's just excited. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I guess. So I gotta just say one more thing. We know when we're gonna hear all this from Microsoft. It's gonna be E3. When are we gonna hear about it from Sony?
But is it really E3?
It's good. It has to be E3.
Is it?
Microsoft's the only one there.
Okay, but if you think about it, there's not a whole lot of precedence other than the fact that in 2013 they actually had their first reveal event in May, and then they went to E3 to show off more of the Xbox.
They're gonna do it because E3 this year is gonna be Halo. Just Halo. Because and they're gonna link that with the Series X, and then surprise us with a few exclusives, and that's gonna be their selling thing. And if Sony and Nintendo is not gonna be there, when is there gonna be a better time? Are they gonna do their Xbox whatever? What was that show that they did in London?
X19.
XO19.
XO19.
They're gonna do
Yeah,
XO20.
the fan
no,
event.
they're gonna do it on E3.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't take advantage of this, they're never gonna learn how to one up Sony. So
But
you're
then
right.
When is Sony gonna do it? Is it gonna do it at TGS? That's so late.
No, TGS wouldn't make sense.
They're gonna have to do. They're gonna announce a random Sony show.
Yeah,
out of
it'll
nowhere.
be a random
It'll be a
Sony
PlayStation showcase.
Or they do a state of play, a couple before, and then they do a big reveal just right around the same time frame as E3, just to screw with Microsoft. So that way Microsoft doesn't dominate the media cycle.
If they're waiting for Microsoft to announce first, then they have to do it after E3, right?
Which is still fine because you could
So
maybe
they
go
would
1 week
probably have
after.
to do it in what, July?
Could be end of June. It could be
They'll
beginning of
probably
July.
do beginning of August. I think Sony has released stuff, announced a lot of stuff.
Are you saying that's going to be their first drop of content, or is it going to be their second or third? Like, what are you trying to say? Because if I was,
So
as a fan, I could not wait till August to find out what Sony reveals about their next console.
Okay,
because
well,
if it's August, I'll tell you this: I'm not going to buy their fucking
so
console.
when is E3 normally going to be?
June
it's
12th
probably-
to June 14th.
Okay, I guess that's a little earlier than next week. All right, then it'll be July. I don't know why I was thinking it
But-
was the end of June, but
Is it going to be their first drop of content on the PS5, like actually revealing everything, or is there going to be an event beforehand?
I mean, if they do an event beforehand, they're gonna do it loads. They would do like a sandwich, right before Xbox announces at E3. They would be like, "Oh, this is what it looks like," you know, and maybe here's a game. But the big hook is gonna have to come like 2 weeks
Yeah.
or 3 weeks right after. I don't know what the biggest hook will be. I think Sony is thinking it's gonna be the price point.
Yeah, it has to be the price point.
I always thought it would have been exclusives, but I guess in this world we live in, price point is the biggest deal for Sony.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, think about it. If
And
you have,
exclusives are the biggest deals for Microsoft. How ironic is that?
I know, it's
Could
like
they
the
need
opposite.
It that bad?
Yeah, I think that the fact that Last of Us 2 is basically coming out within the next 3 months, and the fact that Ghost of Tsushima will be coming out this summer, if they don't have one other big game as a PS5 launch only exclusive, I mean, price point is really what will dominate the headlines for the next couple of months until the console comes out.
Yeah. And just for the record, I'm saying Demon's Souls is going to be the big game for this winter.
I mean, it's
And
quite
then
obvious. that
next-
Demon's Souls.
Next March, Horizon Zero Dawn 2. Calling it now.
I think
Or
Demon's
February.
Souls will also be their big launch title. But I think we're going to get a Ratchet and Clank game probably within the first 6 months to a year, because it's quite obvious that Insomniac has been working on a new Ratchet and Clank game. They've even talked about it a little bit ever since the launch of their remastered or remake of the 2016 game. So I think we're going to get a Ratchet and Clank for sure. Now, I don't know if we're going to get another God of War sequel or Spider-Man sequel right away.
They'll announce Spider-Man before God of War, I feel. Because God of War is a big gun.
Yeah, it really
You don't
is.
want to have too many big guns at the same time. Because Horizon would be the next up to bat, I feel, just based off timing,
Right.
than God of War. And if you're announcing both God of War and Horizon at the same time, they're going to kill each other's sales. Sony never does that.
Yeah.
They space this
You need to space
out
it out.
so well every 3 to 6 months.
You're right. They do a good job of that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm looking
Maybe
forward
they'll
to
do like
that.
a Metroid Prime, you know? Like, just God of War.
Just
2.
Two, yeah.
But actually not 2.
But it is being remade. Yeah, that's all I'll say on that. So.
Okay, and I think the last thing we wanted to talk about was what games are you looking forward to the most?
Oof, that's a good one.
We're gonna try and keep it to 3.
Do you
want
want
to go first, Sergeant?
Sure. I'll just. Do you want me to name all 3?
Mine's are
or?
gonna be. We can go one by one. Mine's are gonna be super obvious. Ooh, should I try and guess what your top games are gonna be?
Yeah, see if you can guess. At least
All right,
one.
this one's a little cheating. This is probably gonna be your 4th pick because you're cheating. Elden Ring.
No, actually.
What?
It
What?
actually isn't.
You don't even care about George R. R. Martin. Get out of here.
I'm actually really hyped for Elden Ring, but that's
Wait.
not one of my most anticipated games.
I would say Pokemon Sun and Moon 2, but I'm gonna go no.
No.
You cannot stop talking about this. I will never understand this. Ghost of Tsushima.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I got one. I will say number 2, based off of how the media is covering it, Doom Eternal.
No.
Oh! And number 3, I would have guessed Cyberpunk.
Yes, for sure.
Alright, I got 2 out of 3.
That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. You can read my mind. You know me like a
That's
book.
pretty good. Alright.
I guess I'll just say my third game then, because why not? The third game that I'm really looking forward to
Can I guess?
is what?
Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
Oh!
Yes. I've never played Final Fantasy VII. I have played a couple of the Final Fantasy games within the series. I know they don't all really interconnect, but I'm just excited because that game is being remade in a more modern engine and modern era, and it just looks fantastic. I know the story might not make sense. I really don't know.
They're gonna change it up a little.
But yeah, the fact that they're deciding
to change it up.
Right, the fact that they've gotten people who've made the game like 2 decades ago, and the fact that they're having some freedom to explore and be a little more creative with the game this time around. Even though it's going to be split into multiple parts, I'm excited for it. I like JRPGs. I don't play them often, but when I do, I get a sense of accomplishment from beating them because I feel like they are pretty challenging. And when you can beat a game of that kind of stature, it's just really satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just looks beautiful. So.
I mean, I feel like right now, if Final Fantasy VII Remake isn't in your top 3, I would be really surprised because, like, man, everyone has been talking about this.
Right.
And you know what's been this is actually one of the most surprising things for me about this remake. For so many years, I don't know if you remember, but I think it was on the PS3 when they showed that little trailer with Aerith and everyone lost their goddamn minds. We were like praying to every gaming god in the universe to deliver us Final Fantasy VII Remake. I thought it was less likely than Half-Life 3. It was like, God tier, let this game please come out and bestow us peasants with something amazing.
Right.
And then it got announced, and it was almost anticlimactic.
It really
like,
was.
I was, oh my God, this is happening. And then I was a little bothered by the episodic nature of it. And I don't know. Everyone knows it's coming out. Everyone is probably going to want to play it. Everyone's going to buy it and it's going to sell amazing. But I don't know, man. It's not as where's the hype train? Like, I feel like the hype train isn't as massive for it as Last of Us 2. How is that possible?
I think that's more of a perception thing. I think from everything I've been reading online, the people that I've been talking to, I think the fact that this game has been released multiple times in the last couple of years on PS4, on mobile, on maybe I think even the Switch, just tells you how many people are really buying the game.
I think people, I don't know, maybe this is just me, maybe I have a skewed perspective. Not the first time it's happened. I think people are, I hate you. I think people are incredibly excited for it, rightfully so. I am too. It's in my top 3 as well. I feel like it doesn't have as crazy media coverage as I expected. I feel like every time I go on the internet, all I hear about is Doom Eternal. And Doom Eternal and Final Fantasy Remake are kind of coming around the same time. And if you had asked me 4 years ago, like, to compare the two, I'd be like, what's new? You know, even after Doom 2017 came out, my favorite game, I'm pretty sure it was my favorite game that year. I would still say Final Fantasy VII Remake blows it out of the water. And now it feels like the media is just hyper fixated on Doom Eternal. And
I think the fact that this is a sequel for that Doom remake, and the fact that they don't have as much to prove. They know they have a formula that works for them, but the fact that when you announce such a beloved franchise is returning, such as Final Fantasy VII, you have so much to show, and you can't mess it up. The fact that they already announced it was going to be episodic turned a lot of fans off. And the fact that this is mainly more of an action RPG and not really turn-based anymore also turned a lot of people off. So I think they have one shot, and I think they've gone pitch black silence for a reason, and that is they know their game is great, and they're just going to drop it to all of the media with days before it releases to be like, hey, we've been saving this really for everyone to see, and we don't want any of this to be leaked beforehand.
I guess I didn't think about that. That makes sense. I forgot about that backlash. That was pretty strong backlash.
Right.
So I guess maybe a part of it is the fact that this is what Square Enix had hoped for. This is what they want. Like, the release date is there. The game is going to be great.
Right.
Let's not overblow it in the last couple of months before it comes out. Because it's guaranteed it's going to sell like crazy.
Oh, yeah, like gangbusters.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I like action RPGs. I think it's going to be great. I think their battle system actually kind of looks cool. I really like Kingdom Hearts battle system. I don't know if this will be better than that.
It looks very strategic. I mean, it looks very reminiscent to Final Fantasy 15, but the fact that they've now added an option to make it closely resemble a sort of turn-based battle where you can not freeze time, but slow down time to the point where you can pick and choose who you want to attack strategically. I think that was very creative and great on their part to give people options, you know, to cater to somewhat to the fans. It's not what everyone wanted, but
is going to be instant Game of the Year?
I think it has a shot of getting Game of the Year. I think
that's
overall.
What shocked me, because if you had asked me this, like, in the last 5 years, I'd be like, are you kidding me? How is this even a conversation?
Right. I agree.
It's going to be Game of the Year. How did we get here? That it's not an instant Game of the Year.
Because it's releasing in the craziest year we'll ever probably live to see, right? In a year where we're getting 2 new console launches, in a year where we're getting
Cyberpunk bringing their
2020,
heavy guns.
Yeah. When we're getting Cyberpunk 2077, when we're getting Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and God knows what else.
Halo Infinite,
Doom Eternal,
and if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out
oh,
this year,
dude, I would just jizz my pants.
Goodbye to your wallets.
My pants would be soaked in jizz.
Yeah, you might just want to like cover that all up preemptively with a bunch of napkins.
Yeah, exactly.
Make you a little, jizz diaper with Kleenex.
So
cheaper than an actual diaper, I hope.
Yeah, I would hope. But
yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm not trying to downplay like Final Fantasy VII Remake, because I'm gonna buy it day one. I'm gonna love the shit out of this game. I tried to play Final Fantasy VII. I couldn't get into it just because it was a little too old for me. I have watched a shitload of videos on Final Fantasy VII.
Oh yeah, the story's definitely interesting.
Yeah, the story is super cool.
It's very intriguing.
I loved Crisis Core. Oh my god.
Crisis Core was a great game.
For the longest time, I would put that in my top 5. I loved Zack. Oh my god, I was obsessed with The Price is Freedom. That was the greatest song ever. I would write for like an hour to that song. So I am super hyped for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I just can't believe the way like that game is coming out. It's like if Half-Life 3 was coming out in 2 months and somehow like I'm not just waking up every day with
maybe Half-Life Alyx is like a prequel to Half-Life 3. We just don't know it, and it's a VR game.
If that came out this year too, because it's coming out this year, right?
Yeah, it is.
And it's Half-Life 3, but as
a VR game. What if Valve announced that Half-Life 3 is going to be a 3-part series where Half-Life, the first part of it and the last part of it are VR games, and the second part of that game ends up being like some sort of experience, not even a real game. I mean, I still think people would buy that like flocks.
At this point, it does not matter what Valve does. Valve can make Half-Life 3 mobile.
Yeah, they could. They wouldn't, and they still wouldn't get as much backlash as Diablo Immortal did. But yeah,
I actually don't know about Diablo Immortal, but okay.
Yeah, a mobile game that everyone got pissed about because they thought they were announcing Diablo 4 a couple years ago.
That's pretty troll.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so Final Fantasy VII Remake, you stole that from me, but I feel like if you ask anyone their top 3,
it has to be
has
on that
a
list.
very, very high probability chance of being there. And I thought the newest trailer was amazing.
Oh yeah, it looked great.
So, yeah, we can agree on that. What's your?
I think
for you then?
I think the second game I really want to talk about, it's pretty high on my list.
Ghost of Tsushima.
Is Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh,
look,
our dude.
We haven't seen a whole lot about this game, but there's some things that make me excited for it, and I'll say this. Sucker Punch has been working on this game. By the time it releases, 5 years in total of development time. Because I remember when they released the first trailer, which was 2018 Game Awards, they said they had been working on the game for 3.5 years. So by the time it releases in summer, it'll be 5 years. It's a long time. But then again, they're making a brand new IP, so you do need quite a bit of time to come up with new characters, new stories, new narratives. It's not just a continuation of their old game, and it's not just another sequel to Infamous. So if it was a 5-year dev cycle for an Infamous game, I think it could be probably one of the greatest games we've ever seen, but it's not. So I think they really need that time for polish, just to get across the idea of what this game truly is going to be, an open world, maybe action RPG of some sort. But the fact that people have always been clamoring, and myself have been clamoring for an Assassin's Creed game set in feudal Japan. I feel like this is what we're finally getting.
When you say it that way, you're selling me on the game.
Exactly.
You're selling me on the game with just that. But I have a lot of feelings about this game.
I have a lot of doubts, so don't get me wrong.
First, Sucker Punch, I freaking love them. Infamous is amazing. I only played like the one Sly game that was on PS Now. That was a PS3 game. I think it was a PS3 game or a PS3 game. I think it was Sly 4.
Sly 4, yeah.
I liked it.
PS4, PS3, yeah.
I really like Sucker Punch. If you put these 3 games in a row, these 3 series, I would never think that this is coming from the studio that gave me Infamous and Sly Cooper. Not always a bad thing, because we also have Naughty Dog that made Crash Bandicoot and now Last of Us.
Right, and Uncharted.
But I don't know, Ghost of Tsushima just seems so tonally different than what I would expect from Sucker Punch, and I'm wondering, what is the core essence of Sucker Punch, right? Like, we get Insomniac, right? Like, it's those fun games. So whether it's Sunset Overdrive or Spider-Man or Ratchet and Clank, they're coming from the same studio. But Ghost of Tsushima just seems so, like, different, and I just gotta say, I'm wondering if this is because of the overall PS4 effect, and the PS4, like, exclusive. The PS4 exclusive that they make, which are dark and edgy and amazing stories,
I think that played a factor. I think Sony gave them a lot of reign to come up with something that would spawn a ton of sequels or maybe spin-offs even, if they're successful enough. Because if you look at Days Gone, a game that came out last year that...
Which I called from day one was not going to be good.
Well, commercially it didn't do good at launch. They still sold decent. And from what I'm hearing
is there a Sony exclusive that cannot sell decent, though? They all sell decent.
That name, that brand, is just... It helps games like those sell. But the last update that came out for that game, from what I'm hearing, it really made that game really good. And now it's what people are considering underrated. So...
But, Arjun, you could say the same thing about ReCore. And that's heresy. God. That's heresy. No. But the ReCore Definitive Edition, if people didn't even review it, and it was a whole nother release, but it fixed all the problems in ReCore.
You can say that for any game, you're right, but my point that I'm trying to get across is that since Sony has given them 5 years, they're now flexing their creative muscle to the point where I think they'll have, at launch, a steady state for their game. They're not going to be like... They might have a day one patch, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think they'll have enough content in the game that will satisfy people.
I think it'll be polished.
Yep, I think it'll be...
It's going to look super cool when you're on the horse and you're running through a bunch of flowers.
Flower fields.
That's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
I think the setting will be amazing. But the things that I'm concerned about, which I think are the biggest things in a game, some of them, the story, like, they're going to go for a real Hollywood blockbuster story. And I don't know how well Sucker Punch will pull it off. I liked the non-blockbuster story of Infamous 1. It was light, it was basic, it was like my favorite story. I didn't really care for Second Son as much, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like they were really trying to push that narrative in that game and didn't work. So now this game is, I don't know, it's a little unproven territory when it comes to the story.
I agree.
Also, it's an American company making a Japanese game.
Yeah,
so that's what do they know about this?
Exactly.
They must have done a lot of research. And then the other big thing, I'm not feeling the gameplay. I think it looks like a worse version of Dark Souls sped up.
Wow, that's saying something.
Yeah, because I was just watching this gameplay where he's like holding his sword, and there's like 3 people in front of him, and it totally looked like Rurouni Kenshin, which is amazing. And I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be so cool. And then like he's just blocking everything and killing everyone with one hit, and I was like, okay, but the timing of these blocks and these dodges don't seem that difficult, and you're one hit killing a lot of people. So then I was like, okay, this boss fight will be good. And it looked amazing. The setting was so cool. It was like orange flowers, and I was like, oh, it's so cool. And then he's fighting that girl, and the combat looked better there. It really did. And I felt like it's something I could enjoy, but it didn't seem amazing, which I've come to expect from a game of a PS4 exclusive like a God of War.
I'll say this. I have confidence in Sucker Punch in the sense that when I played Second Sons, the story wasn't great, like you said. It was really forced, but their combat, they nailed the feel of those 4 different powers. Well, I'll say 3 out of the 4 powers.
They were so good.
The last power that you got was horrible, but the fact that they could diversify for such a game like that tells me that, look, when you get a game like this, where you're like a ninja or a samurai, you don't want just a hack and slash game. You don't want to become a Ninja Gaiden game where then your game just ends up becoming so difficult because you're so powerful. Or like Neo or Dark Souls. You end up becoming so powerful in terms of combat that you have to compensate by giving difficulty spikes that are just ridiculously to overcome, like very ridiculous. If they can come up with a interesting or challenging combat system with the grandiose of a great narrative, I think they'll nail it. I think they'll sell well. And then if they can just make it look beautiful, like, and then release it on PS5 or with a day 1 patch, I think they're gonna do great. So that's my thoughts. I'm just excited for it. We haven't seen a whole lot of it. Like you said, we've had that one demo, but it's up there.
And that trailer was cool, I will say.
Yeah.
When all those arrows were flying too, that was really
it looked
cool.
amazing. Like I said, it really does remind me of like an Assassin's Creed game that we've always wanted but never got, and I feel like it's gonna deliver.
Assassin's Creed Japan, man, you're selling me. That's amazing.
It's happening. Come at me, Ubisoft.
Plot twist.
Ubi.
That's the actual ending.
Leggo.
Yeah, I guess my closing thoughts on that game would be, I really like Sucker Punch. I don't know if I would say they're as good as the rest of the studios at Sony, but I really like what they do.
Yeah, I like what they do.
And because I like what they do so much, I bumped up the quality level even more because I fell in love with it. And if this game, all the pieces come together, this game will be amazing. So much better than I expected. 9.5. I can see that happening. I really think there is a chance that can happen. My gut feeling is that this is going to be a game that I will think is an 8.5. I will play it. I will recommend to other people. But it's going to be seen as a 9.0 or a 9.2. People are going to love it. I'm going to think it's a little overhyped, but I'll still play it and enjoy it.
I agree. I could see that happening. I can see it going either way. So.
But I don't think it'll be terrible.
I think by no means. I think, if anything, just as a quick comparison, I think when Spider-Man PS4 came out, very enjoyable, but it was unsatisfying to me because the combat was very, I don't want to say basic, but it was very repetitive. I think they have a better chance of being a better version of of what Insomniac did for Spider-Man. And if that is any indication, you're right. It will get a 9.0 or higher.
I like Spider-Man, but I actually enjoyed Ratchet and Clank combat more.
I did.
Which says
agree.
a lot.
I agree.
It's not like Spider-Man combat was bad.
It wasn't bad.
It was very good. It wasn't mind-blowing.
It was not
Ratchet
mind-blowing.
and Clank sometimes can be mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's just the platforming and everything else they offered in that game. But
yeah,
I agree. So, and I guess.
And then what was your third game?
My third game was Cyberpunk 2077. I think that game is just gonna blow people's minds out of the water.
I actually put that down on my list. If you asked me earlier in the year, I don't know what changed. Or like last year, I had it in my top 3, and now it's like 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a big drop, but maybe if it would drop 1 to 4, sure. But I think from what they've shown, the 2 public demos they've shown, they haven't been very polished, and they were very critical of first showing it because they were trying to show that those demos behind closed doors, and they knew that if they showed it to the public, they would get probably quite a bit of backlash because it wasn't optimized whatsoever. But the fact that that scope of the game is so huge, I give them a pass. And you can just see the ideas that they were cultivating for that game. Like, that gun gameplay that they had in some of those demos is shit I've never seen in an FPS before. And that's what has me excited for the game.
I feel like I've kind of seen thoughts of it.
Okay. I just feel like what they're going for is going to be so unique that I think it might end up being better than Witcher, which is the last game they put out.
That's going to be hard.
It really is.
For this reason.
Okay.
Because the cyberpunk setting, we, like, gamers love it. It's something that we hold dear in our heart. That was really big in the 90s, in the early 2000s with Matrix and stuff. What people love nowadays is fantasy.
You're right.
All these fantasy... Witcher just became a TV show super successful. Game of Thrones just Game of Thrones. people love their fantasy stories right now. They're bringing back Lord of the Rings, right?
Right.
Lord of the Rings just had a bunch of games that were successful. So I think that worked to the advantage of Witcher. And I don't know. Even if like Cyberpunk is an objectively better game than Witcher, that setting, like that's what really sold me on Witcher. Because I was like, I want to be in a medieval setting, right? I would want to be in a medieval setting more than I would want to be in a cyberpunk setting. And
I'll give you that.
I don't know. I feel like that was different 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, a lot has changed in the video game industry, the landscape, and just what people like in general. So I can see what you're trying to get at. But I think that the fact that they're taking their talents from this third-person RPG to an FPS RPG is very interesting. And they've been working on this game for like 7 or 8 or more years. The fact that they've had...
Why is that a thing, by the way? First-person shooters going to third-person action games, right? Like we had Killzone go to Horizon,
right? And
now we
now
have Witcher go to Cyberpunk.
It is really strange.
It's like they're both opposites, right? It's like first to third, and then
first.
RPG like with swords to a
right.
shooter.
Yeah, it is really strange when you think about it. It's just it must be a coincidence, but
yeah,
it's no, it's just up there at the top of my list. I'm just kind of sad it was delayed, to September, but
I think.
If they need that time to polish and optimize, so be it. Take your time. The only thing that sucks is there's so many games coming out probably in the fall and holiday, like Marvel's Avengers, plus all those launch games for the PS5 and Series X. It's just going to be so crowded. It's like the later half of this year is going to be so ridiculously jam-packed.
And there's another Modern Warfare coming out.
And another, Call of Duty game. I mean, Pokemon expansions. It's just getting ridiculous, so I'm excited for the game.
Cyberpunk will make it happen whenever it gets released, but I guess the reason Cyberpunk dropped on the list for me, I wasn't bothered by the delay at first. I was like, whatever, like, they need some more time to polish, I'm okay with it. But the more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. Because I think from the day one that I saw Cyberpunk, in the backest recesses of my mind, I had some concerns. And I just never really thought about them. I was like, this seems very ambitious, there's going to be so much to this open world. Can they pull it off on current gen? And now when I look at the timing, I was like, okay, they're trying to pull this off on current gen and new gen. Is this going to impact their vision? If they had just went like balls out, let's just do new gen, they couldn't, would that have allowed them to do their vision? Because what their vision was sounds like new gen, right? Yeah. It sounds like no loading times, huge, massive open world. That sounds like the promise of how Solid State is going to actually change the way we play games, not just make them faster, right? And now, are they being hampered because of old gen? And you also have to consider, dude, this game is huge. It probably took an insane amount of time to make this game, right? So I'm imagining they probably started more PS4, Xbox One. At some point, they had to consider PS5, right? And they were probably in a weird transition because they went from Xbox One, which is the crappiest, to Xbox One X, to now Xbox Series X and PS5, right? Like, that huge spread that they had to anticipate for, they didn't have that problem with The Witcher. And it's really ambitious, and with how amazing Witcher was, and the pedigree, and how renowned the studio is, CD Projekt Red, I was, like, not a concern. But now it's enough of a concern that it's dropped from, like, 2 or 3 to 4 for me.
Yeah, I'll give you this. They're definitely going to be hampered by the current gen hardware, and here's why. I don't know if you saw those rumors going around that basically said Cyberpunk was delayed because they were having a hard time getting it to run on the base Xbox One.
Yeah,
basically,
I heard that.
And I'm not saying it's true, but I can see that being a case, like not being able to get it run smoothly on current gen consoles, because when you're manufacturing a game or developing a game for a family of consoles, you're told that here's your bare minimum, okay? You have to get it running on this console. The problem was they started working on this game almost a decade ago, so they were limited to the amount of resources they had to work with. And their game grew so huge and so large that, like you said, it really was probably meant for next generation tech. Okay.
And like, you're a coder, right? Like, imagine you're in their shoes.
Oh,
right?
It's horrible.
10 years ago, you are planning on making the sequel to, the next game from Witcher, right?
Right.
And you have these limitations with hard drive and how fast.
Right.
your assets can be pulled from, you know, the hard drive, and that creates a limitation to the game world.
It does.
Right? And now you have more processing power. You can make a completely different game world. So I guess, like, the thought is most games run like shit right up until the end, right? We all know this. So I guess, like, the current build that they have on the game, like, it could run shit on all of it, all the different consoles, and then totally be fine 3 weeks before launch, and no problem, right? So I guess that makes me wonder the credibility of this rumor, like, oh, they couldn't make it run on Xbox One, so the game is being delayed completely. Yeah, but it probably runs on crap on everything. But the bigger concern for me is, are you hampering the game scope in terms of the actual game world because of how fast the assets
I think that's
downloaded?
I think that's a bigger concern, and if you look just to our recent past, there were some cross-generation games that came out on the Xbox One and 360, and vice versa, PS4 and PS3, and some of those games that came from third parties, they lost a couple features on the previous generation, like Titanfall, for example, came out on both 360 and Xbox One. The port was handled by Blue Point Games, and they had to take out certain features in the 360 version because they just couldn't get it to run. And I wouldn't be surprised, though, if, you know, these developers come out and say, hey, look, we're not going to say anything now, but yeah, our design, our goal, our vision was hampered, and guess what? We are having a Series X PS5 version come out a year later, and there's going to be way more features, and it's going to just run better. It's just going to suck, but most of the people would probably already have bought the game by that time. And I'll give you another example. Guerrilla Games was just talking about Horizon when it first came out on the PS4. They originally had an idea to make some sort of flying apparatus in the game, like almost like a plane in a sense, for the main protagonist to be able to fly through, but they couldn't get it done on PS4 hardware. So it's like, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be hampered, and it would be great if they could just say, hey, I'm only releasing this game on Xbox One X and PS4 Pro, but I don't think that's realistic.
They can't do that.
They can't do that. They can't just release those SKUs. So, yeah, it's disappointing in some sense, but I think if they were only doing it on next-gen consoles, this game would not be coming out this year. They would need a lot more time.
And they would have had been planning a long time before.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If this game was releasing on PC only, they would be fine because they're not behooven to go to the lowest spec PC. They'll say, look, our recommended spec is this level, and their minimum spec is this level. And hey, anything below that, we can't guarantee you it'll run. But it's not the same case for these consoles. Microsoft and Sony mandate that it has to run on base PS4 and base Xbox, and that's such a low bar, you know. So it sucks. So you're right. I do have my doubts.
They'll pull it off.
They will.
That team has skills. They'll pull it off. But I just hope it doesn't hamper their vision too much. But I know I'm going to still love that game. I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to rave on how amazing it is.
For sure.
So, okay. So those are your three.
Yep.
All right. So we kind of covered some of my... So I put for number 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake. You already know that. Can you guess my other 2? You're going to guess one off the bat.
It's definitely not Last of Us, because I know you hated that game.
No, it's not going to be Last of Us. Didn't completely hate it, just didn't finish it, thought it was overrated, but it was a pretty good game overall.
It's definitely not Marvel's Avengers.
People are going to hate me for that.
Yeah.
It's not Marvel Avengers either.
Doom.
Doom is number 5.
What the hell?
Yeah.
That's not your top 3?
I almost thought number 6, actually.
What other games are coming out this year?
It doesn't have to... Are we limiting it to this year? Because if we're limiting it...
I thought, like, it's the most anticipated games of this year.
Never mind. Then I guess Cyberpunk is my number 3 then.
Okay, that makes more sense. Which we've already talked about. So, your second being Final Fantasy. So then what would be your first?
Yeah, Arjun, you know it.
I don't know, man. I'm blanking out here. What's something I haven't talked about yet? That
Halo!
Oh, shit. Okay.
Halo Infinite is my number 1. And just as a segue, what do you think my number 3 was? It's not a game that's coming out this year, but we know it's coming out.
God of War 2.
God of War 2.
Okay.
Yep, God of War 2 for sure. Oh my god, I'm really excited for that game. I love God of War. See, this is where the PlayStation side of me comes in. Yeah, that's my game. But yeah, my number 1 is Halo Infinite. I feel like I can do an entire podcast about this. I could talk about this game for like 2-3 hours.
Same.
Halo is one of my most beloved games. Yeah. I
Well,
started Halo 1, Halo 2, I played them all. I've put so many hours into that game.
just what do you think? Do you think this game is going to be successful, or do you think it's going to revolutionize the Halo series? I mean,
Man,
why is it so up there for you as
I feel
your
like
number one most anticipated game
I'm
of the year?
going back and forth on what this game is gonna be, and if it's gonna revolutionize shooters, is it gonna be what Microsoft wants it to be? But the hype around this game is insane. Like, and this Microsoft needs the hype around this game to be insane because they're basically trying to catch lightning in a bottle twice. Like, they're trying to do exactly what they did with the original Xbox. And today I'm a little more worried about the game because
You just haven't seen it though.
and I guess I'm just looking into so many trailers, like analyses and all this stuff, but like it seems like they're really copying Halo 1, right? Like if you break it down frame by frame, like the newest trailer we got, he's going up the Cortana on that light bridge, it's all blue. That looks like a complete carbon copy rip off of Halo 1. And I get that they want nostalgia, and that's great, and I'm super excited for it. I really am. But then I'm worried, are they going to play Gears 4? Are they going to basically just prove to us that, hey, we're a new studio, but don't completely hate us. We can do what you love.
Right. Here's
Even
more of the
now,
same.
More of the same because we're proving ourselves. Like, they prove themselves in a different way in Halo 4. Like, we're a good studio. We can make a game you like. It might not be... You like it for the same reasons as Halo 3, but you still like it, right? Halo 5, oh god, right?
Right.
But now, in Halo Infinite, they have to do this ass-backwards thing where, oh, we have to prove ourselves again. But
They
we
really
have to
do.
prove ourselves that we're actually a studio, right? That's
Right.
like the basis of what they're proving themselves. Like, we're a studio that makes competent games. When they shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, that's
This is
not
part of the game.
You're right. That's not the point of why they want to be making a new game, and the fact that they're not calling it Halo 6, but more of a spiritual successor to Halo 5, tells you a lot. It tells you that they've always had different ideas for the game, and that they couldn't make the game they originally wanted to with maybe Halo 5. So I'm excited for that because they have a new engine, the Subspace engine, and I think, with a 5-year dev cycle, I think they have a huge opportunity to prove themselves again. I just don't want it to be... I don't want my hype levels for this game to be so high that I'm just let down by another Halo game and then don't end up playing it again like I did with Halo 5. Because I know the multiplayer was great for Halo 5, and that was like the one shining thing about that game.
Multiplayer was really underrated. Like,
it was very underrated.
Critically, some people really did appraise it and they said it was great. The community stuck with it not as well as I think it deserved to, because Warzone was good. Warzone Firefight was really good. The biggest problem is they release things way too slowly, right? And it took them way too long to get Forge out there. They had way too many few game modes, but what they had was all pretty darn good online, right?
Yeah, and I do have to bring this up because a lot of people just don't know, and 343 Studios was hampered by the old engine that they were working with for Halo 4 and 5, and it's pretty well documented now that when Bungie left Microsoft, they didn't have anything documented for this engine that they were using for Halo.
So troll.
And yeah, very troll to the max. And
as an engineer, how crazy would that make you?
I mean, it would piss me the hell off.
Would you find those people?
I would beat the shit
and
out of
Liam Neeson on them?
I would beat the fuck out of all those developers if I could.
We love Bungie.
I love Bungie.
We love all the Bungie employees.
I mean, I'm not gonna literally beat the fuck out of them.
I'm not saying you guys are bad people for doing that, but
but it's just fucked up
that's hard.
Because, like I said, it's so well documented that they struggled for such a long time trying to figure out how this engine worked, how to optimize it, how to get the most out of it. And if you don't really have a whole lot of documentation, I mean, that's like the bare minimum. It's like having just a set of morals and ethics within the
morals and ethics. This is getting deep.
I mean, it really is, because if you can't document the shit that you worked on to leave behind for the people that came after you, that just sets a bad example. I mean, people wouldn't want to work with you.
Do you think Bungie was pissed off at that time? Like,
I mean, of course they were.
We thought we were
like
blowing your shit up by leaving for Activision and Destiny, but you just replace us with all your money. And you think 343 is the name of your studio?
Of course they were pissed, but again, you can't just do it. You have to realize, like, at a certain point, they had to realize there's people just like them coming in to make a game, and they deserved an opportunity to do it.
Like, you're not happy about the fact that new studio's taking over. It's still your franchise.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
still your fans.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I don't know what the motives were behind that.
Yeah,
you know.
so I just
Maybe
wanted to.
It just wasn't a part of their culture, but yeah, I can see how that hampered.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to preface that, and that's probably why they didn't have the greatest launch with Halo 5. Doesn't explain why they had a horrible narrative story to tell in Halo 5, but it's just maybe the quirks of the gameplay and combat and all that. But I think the fact that they now can prove themselves with a new engine, they have 5-year dev cycle, and the fact that, there's a lot riding on this because this is the game that Microsoft is saying will be their system seller for the next year.
So, I think the reason I'm so hyped for this game is this is Microsoft's Breath of the Wild. This is what they're fucking shooting for. And the lofty ambitions of this game, they're basically trying to resurrect the Xbox One with one game. Like, they're... I love Xbox, but man, like Halo, the reason Xbox is a thing now is because of Halo, and they're bringing all the big guns out for Halo Infinite, and the confidence that they have that they can go this long with showing as little as they have, and still being so confident in this game.
It's ballsy.
It's very ballsy.
It's ballsy.
We have no idea what this game is going to be like in the face of all these rumors and leaks. It has been rumored so much that this is going to be semi-open world, grappling hook or no grappling hook.
Right.
Who knows, right? But we know that this is going to be a spiritual successor, and it's going to be kind of a soft reboot, and nobody knows what the heck that really means. But like 343 doesn't feel like they need to explain it yet. The trailers we saw are super nostalgic. Art style is completely different, and if they pull this game off, it's going to be mind-blowing. And shooters, I feel like, have kind of fallen by the wayside lately. And that's why I'm also really excited for Halo Infinite, because RPGs have been the king for the last few years. I feel like Battlefield kind of let us down. I feel like Call of Duty let us down. And lately, those are hitting the limelight. Modern Warfare, I am in love with that game. I feel like I'm in high school all over again. It's great.
They've been hitting their stride, I'll say that.
Yeah, they've been hitting their stride, and I think this is the year that shooters kind of take that limelight back. Doom Eternal is going to be amazing. It's going to be revolutionary. I want to see how Halo Infinite tries to revolutionize. I personally think that Doom Eternal is going to steal a lot of the spotlight. I think at the end of the year, Game of the Year is going to go for shooters. Like, best shooter of the year will go to Doom Eternal. Do I think Doom Eternal is going to be better as a shooter of Halo? I mean, I can't say because I don't know too much about Halo. But I think Halo, I don't know. I'm more excited for Halo. I think the changes that Halo could potentially make to shooters will be more interesting than the changes Doom could make. Because Doom is basically just taking Doom 2017 and putting it on steroids and cocaine and speed and every goddamn thing in the world. You know?
Right.
It's probably revolutionary to a lot of people, but like I get what Doom is about.
It's
right?
more of the same, and they're just improving upon it. Whereas Halo is redefining a generation.
Yeah, like if Halo finds a way of having that same interesting combat system, but somehow making this semi-open world work, which I don't know what they're going to do, but that could be really
While
interesting.
also telling a great story.
Because, I mean, what open world shooter is there? What semi-open world shooter?
You have kind of Borderlands 3, which is like a looter shooter, but it also has a story to it, which many people have always liked. I mean, I'm not saying Borderlands 3, because a lot of people were hating on the story recently, but Borderlands, kind of sort of, like you said, Rage 2. Yeah, there's not a whole lot, to be quite honest.
Yeah. I mean, like, and you might think that you need a lot to revolutionize a genre, but you don't, right? Like, Doom did it because it was smooth combat and intense speed, thinking, and the chainsaw, right? Like, that seems like a lot, but it really wasn't too much. And then Time Wall did it because you could finally run, right? And that was a huge thing. And I think if Halo can make the semi-open world that they're talking about work, that could be a huge deal, and that could be super interesting. So I guess that's why I'm really stoked. I just cannot wait to see how Halo Infinite works out. And I guess That's why I'm most excited for it, because I want to see how good it does or how bad it does, and the ramifications on how good or bad it does have the biggest real-world consequences compared to any other game that's coming out this year.
I just gotta say this, like, when the PS4 and Xbox One launched, I think I went almost a solid 2 years before I ever played any game on, like, both of those consoles, and I bought both of those, day one.
Oh, do you remember how much Towerfall Ascension we played?
Oh my god, that was ridiculous.
The game of the first
That was,
year.
and then to think that at the launch of these new generations, like, we're getting, I mean, this is so asinine. Like, we are so spoiled to the point where it's like, what game do I want to play now in 1 year? This is not like within the first 2 years. This is like within 1 year.
Well, I think Sony has hit their absolute best stride right now. It takes a while, but when they have their best stride, you know, they could probably do another year on the PS4.
For sure.
They probably easily could. But I think they're jumping. They're going to the next console because Xbox has to. And I think the reason we have this amazing competition is because Sony might not show it, but Sony is taking Xbox really seriously. And I think Sony is smart in how they're approaching Xbox. And meanwhile, Xbox has all the money in the world and everything to prove. And I think their competition is super fierce. And just by coincidence, Nintendo, which has just been doing their own thing this whole time, has also hit their stride. You know, and Xbox has kind of hit their stride with Game Pass. Everything has just kind of amalgamated.
Yeah, it really has.
And honestly, like, if Halo Infinite does its job and it's really, really good, and Microsoft has one more, like, really, really good exclusive that comes out soon, I will be very happy for the gaming world. Because that means everyone would have hit their stride. Like, can you imagine if Hellblade Senua's Saga came out in, like, April of 2021, which is not going to happen, and it was, like, an amazing game?
Yeah, it'd be
then,
crazy.
like, everyone and all three would be happy, but that doesn't mean the war ends.
Right.
So, the escalation, man.
I don't know. This next couple of years are just going to be crazy ridiculous, and I'm excited.
Yeah, good time to be a gamer.
Yeah.
Alright, so I think that's about wraps up everything that we wanted to say for today. And we will catch you guys next time.
Yeah, sounds good. Peace.
See ya.